Hello and welcome. My name is Chen Xiao. I'm a public participation specialist with the Department of Toxic Substances Control. We will have a presentation for the draft remedial action plan for the Union Carbide facility in Torrance. Before we start, I'd like to acknowledge the native culture of Los Angeles and the tribal lands of the Tongva and the Nuwubu. Today's meeting agenda comprises of meeting protocols and guidelines, DTSC project team, DTSC's role, site background, environmental oversight, investigation results, human health risk evaluation, proposed cleanup alternative, and receive community questions and comments. The protocols for today's meeting: please mute yourself unless you are speaking. The facilitator may mute you at different points. Please do not take it personally. We are recording this meeting. Please type questions into the Q&A section or raise your hand. We'll go to the phones first for initial questions. Meeting guidelines. Please be concise when speaking. We hope to address as many participants as possible. Speak when called upon by the facilitator. Allow speakers to respond uninterrupted. You may type comments or questions in the Q&A section. This project team consists of Javier Hinojosa, Branch Chief, Shahir Haddad, Supervising Engineer, Joe Huang, Project Manager, Uda Hellman Bloomberg, Project Toxicologist, Amit Pathak, Project Engineer, and myself, Chen Xiao, Public Participation Specialist. Shahir Haddad, Supervising Engineer, will give this part of the presentation. Shahir?
Thank you, Chen. Good evening, and thank you for attending our meeting. Again, I'm Shahir Haddad, a Supervising Engineer with the Department of Toxic Substances Control. Before we discuss details of the project, I'd like to briefly talk about who we are and what we do. The Department of Toxic Substances Control, or DTSC, is one of the agencies under the California Environmental Protection Agency. Our department mission is the protection of human health and the environment from toxic substances. We are responsible for investigation and cleanup of properties contaminated with toxic substances. To that end, we've been involved in investigation and cleanup of the former Union Carbide Corporation Torrance facility. Could you go to the next slide, please? You know, when we start investigation on a property, in general, we look at the operational history of the property. And I thought it would be good to browse through some of the historical history of the Union Carbide facility. The facility is 37 acres, started operation in 1956 for polyethylene and ethylene glycol manufacturing production, and it was also used as distribution center. The operation changed over the years. The production stopped in 1982, and the property, or part of the property, was decommissioned, sold, and redeveloped. The only thing remaining on the site right now is the site is used itself as a distribution facility only currently. Next slide, please. This is a layout of the facility that we're talking about, or we're addressing in the cleanup plan. The red line represents the boundary of the site, and the areas 1, 2, 3, 4. We divided the entire property into different areas for investigation purposes. There is no other significance to the different area. The department started overseeing investigation and cleanup in area 1, what we refer to as the hair separator area. Then the investigation work expanded into the remainder of the site. Next slide, please. Our work in Area 1 started in 1996. An agreement was executed between Union Carbide and the Department for Area 1 in 96. After that, a remedial investigation feasibility study started. The purpose of the remedial investigation is to define the boundary of contamination and the feasibility study, the goal of the feasibility study to look for technologies that are applicable and effective in addressing the contamination. The remedial investigation feasibility study for Area 1 completed in 2003. Based on that work, a removal action work plan or a cleanup plan for Area 1 was done in 2004. And as the removal action work plan was implemented, the work on the site was expanded beyond Area 1 into different areas of the site. I didn't list here all the major effort that was done throughout the site, but I included some major milestones or significant aspects to the project. As you can see here, more investigation was done and the results was documented. An additional site assessment for the entire site, a report dated October 2010. A health risk evaluation was done in a report 2015, and the biogeochemical evaluation 2018. The purpose of that evaluation was to look at technologies that are more effective in addressing the contamination in Area 1 of the site. Because a lot of work was happening throughout the site, investigative work, it seemed like a logical next step to expand the scope of work under the original agreement to include the entire property, and that was done in 2019. And the last item here is the remedial action plan for the entire site, which is the subject of our meeting today. Next slide, please. This is a figure that I wanted to show here to give you an overall view of the investigations that were done over the entire site. Different symbols represent and different colors represent different types of sampling and different investigations over the year. I just wanted to give you an overall view, like a big picture view of the investigations done throughout the years on the site, and we'll go over area by area of investigation results. Next slide. For Area 1, the main contaminants in Area 1 is the chemical dropiline, which is a mixture of petroleum hydrocarbon. The blue line here on this figure represents the boundary of area impacted by this contaminant. And the blue line is based on sampling result and based on modeling. Next slide. For Area 2, there is a surface soil or near surface soil impacted by arsenic. And the yellow lines represent the boundary of impacted area. We anticipate about 36 cubic yards need to be excavated from this area, about 2 truckloads that need to be excavated and shipped out. Next slide. For Area 2 and 3, those areas are impacted by soil vapor, benzene, and soil vapor. As you can see here, this is sort of the configuration where we think the contamination is in these 2 areas. There are 2 main areas along the western boundary with relatively higher concentration, one along the northern side and one along the southern side. And the contamination in groundwater and in soil vapor, the configuration of those are similar. Next slide. The naphthalene, another contaminant in soil and groundwater. Naphthalene here, as you can see, this is the configuration of naphthalene in soil vapor in areas 2 and 3 mainly and throughout the site. Next slide. Moving to Area 4, the yellow line again represents the boundary of naphthalene contamination in soil. Again, this is in naphthalene in soil, not in soil vapor. We anticipate about 111 cubic yards need to be excavated from this area. This is about 5 to 10 truckloads that need to be excavated and shipped off. And of course, after the contamination is excavated, sampling will be done to confirm no residual contamination remain in that area. Next slide. With that, I'll turn it over to Uta to talk about the potential impact of these contaminants.
Hello, so this is Uta Hermann-Blumberg, and I'm the toxicologist for this project, and I will be talking about exposure and human health risk. Next slide, please. So this slide gives you an overview of the fate and transport of the chemicals in the environment. The chemicals that are released from some facilities, they move to the soil, and from there to the groundwater. They may form vapors, and the vapors can be drawn into a building. The process is called vapor intrusion. And some chemicals or mixtures also form a separate phase, but which is what we are seeing for some chemicals at this site. Slide, please. So this slide shows what process DTSC goes through to protect human health from the risks that are due to the chemicals that are found in soil, ground vapor, and air, including soil vapor. So as much as possible, we compare the detected concentrations to health protective screening levels and use those for the target cleanup goals. Next slide, please. As Shahir already mentioned, the chemicals detected at this site are mostly hydrocarbons, and they're complex mixtures. And the mixture that's found at this site is a very unusual mixture. It's high in aromatics. And what you see on this slide, you see naphthalene, and naphthalene is the main component. It can make up 50% of this mixture that was released at the site. And then there's some other chemicals too that have been found at the site, other organic compounds and metals. Next slide. After we have the information about the concentrations and the nature of the chemicals, we evaluate and look at the inherent toxicity of what we call the chemicals of concern. We look at the concentrations in the different media, and then we also look at the extent to which people come in contact with the chemicals, and that's what we call exposure. Next slide. Okay, and these are the target cleanup goals that we have come up with in the process of investigation and evaluation. And so there are cleanup goals for soil vapor, and groundwater. And chemicals of concern are arsenic, naphthalene, and benzene. And what we are looking at for exposure is current off-site workers that work in the office buildings next door to this site. There are currently not many people on site. It's used for vehicle storage. We're looking at future on-site workers at the site once new buildings are built on the site and people work in the offices there. And we also look at potential future construction workers that build these new buildings. And so the risk in the cases where we use risk-based screening levels as target cleanup goals, they are based on these exposure scenarios. And that's it for my part. Back to Shahir.
Thank you, Uta. What are we trying to accomplish out of this cleanup plan? We want to protect the human health and the environment by attaining these cleanup targets that Uta was talking about, by implementing some technologies and some remedies that will help us achieve these targeted cleanup goals that Uta talked about in the previous slide. Next. The cleanup technologies that were evaluated are listed here. There are three main things that were looked at. First, we looked at removing contaminants from the ground, that technologies that will help us remove contaminants from the ground, such as soil vapor extraction. Second, we looked at technologies that can break down the chemicals into less toxic and lower the concentration. We looked at different technologies such as enhanced biodegradation. And third, we looked at containment and control to make sure that contaminants are not migrating and there is no exposure to site occupants based on land use. Could you go to the next slide? And we looked at a wide range of alternatives and technologies. As you can see here, there is a big and wide range of technologies. Next slide. Based on looking at the different technologies and looking at the type of contaminants we have at the site and the type of soil on the site and what could be effective and implementable, and by comparing the different technologies, what's proposed for cleanup on this site. For area one, the area one again is contaminated with dropoline, which is a mixture of hydrocarbons, in situ biogeochemical stabilizations. We're looking into ways to make sure that the impacted area is contained, controlled, and there is no migration down to groundwater, and there is no impact to site occupants. There'll be control and monitoring as a component of addressing this area of the site. For the for vapor in the soil in areas 2 and 3, we're looking into soil vapor extraction, basically taking mass out of the ground. For areas where we have soil contamination, area 2 and 3, where we have soil contamination, the technology that's effective into addressing such contamination as arsenic and naphthalene in soil is excavation and offsite disposal. Next slide. What do we expect to see during implementation of the RAP? There will be some barrier fencing and posting along the fence. There will be dust control and monitoring to make sure that the surrounding is not impacted by what's happening on this site. Because we need to ship some soil offsite, there'll be some trucks will be staged on site. The trucks will be decontaminated prior to leaving the site, and also the trucks will be covered and the covers secured before the trucks exit the site. There will be a flagman to control traffic. Hopefully we will not impact the surrounding neighborhood with our truck traffic. The excavated soil will be transported to Clean Harbors landfill in Buttonwillow, California. Because we're going to use soil vapor extraction, that process requires a permit from South Coast Air Quality Management District. Next slide. I thought here to talk about the transportation route because it's probably important to residents and businesses along that route. The trucks exiting the site will get out of the site on Mariner Avenue. Then they will go onto Delamo Avenue to Prairie, and they would enter the 405 North from Redondo Beach Boulevard. From 405 North, it goes into 5 North and all the way to the facility, to the disposal facility. It's a long route. This is how we plan the transportation of the excavated soil. With that, I'll turn it over to Chin to talk about public participation.
Thank you, Shahir. So the next steps are the comment period started July 7th and will end August 8th. DTSC will review comments, responds to comments, and modify the RAP if necessary. DTSC will approve the RAP and the RAP implementation. There are ways to comment. You can comment during this meeting, indicate you would like a formal response, and provide your contact information. You can also email the project team. The contact information is to follow. Or you can use the form and business reply envelope that was included with your community update that was sent last month. The information repositories, we have 2 physical repositories. One is the DTSC Cypress office, and the other one is located at the Torrance Public Library. And we have an online database. You can go to EnviroStore. The address is listed there on your screen. Type in the numbers 19281209 in the search bar, and the project will appear in the drop-down menu. Click that, and you'll be taken to the project page where you can access maps, site documents, and so forth. The DTSC contacts for you to send the comments and questions before August 8th is the project manager is Joe Huang. Here's his phone number if you'd like to give him a phone call or leave a voicemail. And his email address is joe.huang, HWONG, at dtsc.ca.gov. Or you can call, voicemail, or email me the information, and I will forward it to Joe, the project manager. And that concludes the presentation part of this meeting. We can go into the Q&A portion. So let me check to see who's called in. So it looks like we have one caller, a couple callers actually. Are any of the callers wanting to post a comment or a question? Okay, at this point, we'll go ahead and go to the other attendees. Please go ahead and raise your hand if you have a question or a comment for the project team. Or if you're not comfortable verbalizing your comment or question, please feel free to type it in the Q&A section of this meeting. It doesn't look like we have any questions or comments during this meeting. Again, I'd like to let you know that you can still have time to comment or question up until August 8th. So let me know, contact me, email me if you have any questions, and I will forward your comments and questions along. If there's no comments or questions, I will go ahead and conclude this meeting for today. Okay. Thank you very much for your attendance, everyone. Have a good night. Bye-bye.